Hello, everyone. On this episode, I am going to be doing a book review for Last Chance for Victory. This came out in 2001 and was written by Scott Bowden and Bill Ward. Now, the reason why I checked this book out was because a guy who follows me on Instagram is a fellow big time Civil War buff, and he actually recommended that I read this. And I was like, Last Chance for Victory, Last Chance for Victory. It kind of sounded familiar to me, so I went and checked out my personal library of books, and thankfully I have all of my history books in chronological order, thankfully, or this would have taken forever to find this book. So I went, looked at my Civil War section, and I just by chance found that I already owned this book. I think it was given to me by one of my sister's ex-boyfriends, so wherever you are, dude, thanks. But yeah, this is a very good book. And the author's Scott Bowden, I wonder if he's related to Mark Bowden, is known for writing books on Napoleonic warfare. So, seeing how Napoleon, militarily speaking, was the most important figure of the 19th century, it's definitely a good thing having Scott Bowden's background and perspective for the book. And the other writer, Bill Ward, is a history buff slash college professor. So both of these guys bring a lot to the table here as far as doing a book on the Battle of Gettysburg. And in fact, the book starts off with them asking the question, do we really need another book about Gettysburg? I mean, this battle has been written about maybe more than any other battle. I mean, it's been written to death practically. But what makes this book unique and interesting is that the authors set out to clear General Robert E. Lee's name and reputation at the battle. In their opinion, General Lee had a masterful plan and was doing great. It was just that his subordinates underneath him just failed to do their duty and also were either slow or just incompetent. And they make several cases to support their claim that General Lee was actually at his best at Gettysburg. And so the authors have kind of a dual purpose here. Basically, they have to explain the Battle of Gettysburg, go into all the details and events and the timeline and everything, but they also have to go into extreme detail, like the correspondence, read the actual orders that were written by General Lee, go into his mind as much as they can, and also try and figure out the reconnaissance and what General Lee knew at the time that he issued the orders and commands, and basically what the battlefield was telling him at the time of the battle. I mean, it's just really tons of research, tons of information, and it's just a great wealth of information. I mean, I usually like reading books that are full of battle and gore and, all that kind of action-packed stuff, but really, probably over half this book is mostly reconnaissance and reports and just going into, okay, what did General Lee know at this time? Let's say 6 a.m. on July 2nd. Like, what did he know? And what were the scouts telling him? And where were these guys probing the Union lines? And what did they see? And just all this information. I mean, this is a pretty big book. I think it's almost 600 pages. So, yeah, I mean, they definitely worked their asses off finding this stuff out. But this is what the authors had to do in order to find out what General Lee knew at the times that he made his decisions. They really had to get into the situation so that they could present their case that, hey, this is what he knew. This is why he made this decision. This is why it didn't go well, or this is why it did go well. So they really go deep with this book. So whether or not you end up agreeing with the author's point that General Lee was doing a magnificent job at the battle, you have to appreciate all their hard work and also just, enjoy the wealth of information that they provide you here. Even though naturally I don't 100% agree with their conclusion and opinion that General Lee was practically flawless at the Battle of Gettysburg. But hey, I respect the work these guys put into this book, and it's a great book. So yeah, basically as far as the book goes with telling the events of the Battle of Gettysburg, it starts off, I think, right after Chancellorsville, and then it basically deals with General Lee trying to get his army ready to invade the North again. So the authors go into just how big of a logistical nightmare that was, getting the supplies, the horses, the wagons, and all that stuff ready. Plus, they also go into General Lee's problems with trying to get all of the troops together that he could, because the Confederate government, mainly Jefferson Davis, wanted to leave behind garrison troops basically to guard the coasts of Virginia and North Carolina and all that. But General Lee was like, guys, I'm getting the Army of Northern Virginia ready for the final decisive push on the Union capital and everything. Like, I need everybody, every man right here, right now. Let's go. But Jefferson Davis refused to do it. So that cost the Army of Northern Virginia a couple of thousand men, plus some really elite brigades. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think, like, if General Lee had had 5,000 more men, I mean, geez. Like, imagine the Army of Northern Virginia having 5,000 more men on the first day. Like, how big that could have been. Or even on the second day, that would have been really, really big. Even on the third day, that could have been huge. I mean, imagine Pickett's charge with 5,000 more men. I mean, who knows what could have happened. So that was a pretty big deal. And from there, the book goes on to the Battle of Brandy Station and deals with Stuart and all of that. And then the Army of Northern Virginia moving north through the Shenandoah Valley and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, the book is pretty detailed. And then it gets to the first day of the battle, and that's a really good part of the book. I really enjoyed that because I didn't really... I mean, I'm a pretty good expert, I guess, on the Battle of Gettysburg, but I don't know everything. So getting to find out new stuff and read the accounts and the blow-by-blow details of the battle is always fascinating to me. So reading about the first day was pretty interesting. Just reading about, you know, what happened with Davis's brigade, Pettigrew, Pender, Posey, all those guys going in and fighting the First Corps and the Iron Brigade and all of that stuff was really fascinating to me. And then, of course, you get to when the Second Corps under the command of General Ewell shows up, and that's when things really get interesting. Because as Ewell's Corps breaks the Union's 11th Corps and the First Corps is routed and they basically run through Gettysburg and everything's going great for the Confederates. Like, holy shit, we're going to do this. I mean, it was Second Manassas all over again. And then once they get to the southern edge of town, everything changes for the Confederates. And man, reading all the crap that happened, just incompetence, man. Sheer, utter incompetence. Just, it's so painful reading what happened. Just Ewell just basically stopping and doing nothing. And just, I mean, the book goes into details about how the officers were scouting the positions. Like, I think a group of guys went up on Culp's Hill and it was completely empty and nothing ended up happening. And then Ewell just didn't attack Cemetery Hill. Hell, General Lee ordered that the artillery be brought forward and bombard the Union troops before they can fully rally and stuff. And, you know, the book goes into detail about how that was all fucked up. Basically, General Lee's subordinates aren't doing what he's telling them to do. Like the commander of the artillery, I think his name was Pendleton. Well, he didn't move his guns forward because he thought if he opened fire, the Union artillery would fire back, and just incompetence. So it was annoying reading that part of the book, and you can just imagine how frustrating in real life it would be. I mean, pretty much all the generals under Ewell and his corps were like, let's go. The men are ready. Let's attack. And it just didn't materialize. Just didn't happen. And God only knows what would have happened if General Ewell had been aggressive that day. And the authors go into detail about, you know, just the problems General Lee had with his staff being so small and him actually having to really rely on his subordinates. But the book also goes into detail about why General Lee was able to rely on his subordinates, because oddly enough, General Ewell, before that moment at the Battle of Gettysburg, had been a pretty aggressive general. Like when he served under Jackson, he was a hard-hitting, aggressive general. Like 2 weeks before the Battle of Gettysburg, he won one of the most decisive engagements of the Civil War at the Second Battle of Winchester. I mean, he captured the entire Union garrison pretty much and got a ton of supplies and like 23 pieces of artillery and everything. I mean, yeah, Ewell was not a dandy. Yeah, I mean, he was a fighter, but just something happened that day. Once he took the town of Gettysburg, he just stopped. Very, very odd. Yeah. So naturally, the book goes into all of that and just the correspondence and the orders and just, yeah, deals with everything that happened there. And then probably my favorite part of the book was the part that dealt with the second day of the battle, and that was just really, really exciting. Because, I mean, I knew a good bit of the battle, but most of what I've known has been, Little Round Top and Devil's Den and all of that. But this book really focused more on General Hood and McLaws' attacks on Dan Sickles' corps and basically trying to bypass the Round Tops because according to the book, the goal wasn't really to attack the Round Tops and flank the Union Army. It was to launch an attack in echelon, basically so that they could draw General Meade's troops away from Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill and Cemetery Ridge and bring them south. Basically an echelon attack is attacking one piece at a time. So basically Hood would kick off the attack and then the Union Army would, maneuver to counter that. But then before they know it, here comes McLaws, boom, hitting them again. And then Hill and Ewell to the north were supposed to time their attacks properly and, could have collapsed the entire Union Army. And that was, according to the authors, General Lee's plan. So very interesting. And, I hadn't really thought about it being in echelon because usually when I attack, I always just send everybody at once. But the echelon attack did pretty damn well on the second day of Gettysburg. In fact, I consider Hood's and McLaws' attack on the Union forces there to be probably the greatest feat of arms in American military history. They were attacking a very well-entrenched, very good ground defensive force, and they were outnumbered sometimes 2-1. So, I mean, what the Confederates were able to do there was very impressive, especially Barksdale's brigade. That was my favorite part of the book, reading their account of Barksdale's Mississippians going in and just, holy cow, what they were able to do was just amazing, really amazing. And I think their points were pretty valid on the second day, just what Lee was trying to accomplish. And they even came to Longstreet's defense because Longstreet has always caught hell for what he did on the second day. But in their opinion, hey, he did very well. He brought his artillery up. He had plenty of support for his men and just, was carrying out his orders very well. People were saying he was dragging his feet, but it was really just how the Confederates were attacking that day. Basically, they were trying to maneuver so that the Union Army couldn't see them. Like sometimes they would be taking roads and they would be like, oh crap, the Yankees can see us. All right, everybody turn around and let's go the other way and take another road. So, just getting to the battle was just very time consuming. And these guys had been marching all day. So, it was just a lot of time wasted. Maybe if they had just been like, fuck it, let's go and just attacked early, maybe things would have been different. But if they attacked too early, then maybe Dan Sickles' corps hadn't moved from their strong position to a weaker one. So who the hell knows what would have happened, but it would have been interesting. Would have been interesting if they had been able to attack earlier. But yeah, Longstreet seemed to have done a pretty damn good job. It was just that Ewell and Hill didn't do enough. Like Hill, half of his men didn't even do anything. Well, most of his men didn't do anything. Basically, only General Wright's brigade attacked and almost took Cemetery Ridge by itself. It was kind of crazy what they were able to do. And if it hadn't been for Hancock, he probably would have been able to take a good portion of Cemetery Ridge. But the whole point of Hood's and McLaws' attack was to have the Union Army weaken its right flank and center to support the left. And that's exactly what happened. They weakened it severely. Basically, they only left the battered 1st and 11th Corps to the north, and all they had in the center was the 2nd Corps under Hancock. So if Ewell had timed his attack properly, instead of attacking basically at like 6:30 when the sun's going down, he probably would have smashed right through and taken Cemetery Hill, and that probably would have been the battle. Or if he was getting banged up, if Hill had attacked the center of the Union line, that probably would have been enough to end it right there too. So it was really, again, General Lee's subordinates failing him, and the book, I think, and the authors make a very, valid point over and over again about that. But my least favorite part of the book was the part that dealt with July 3rd, the third day of the battle. Basically, they kind of just do just a very basic paint by numbers description of Pickett's charge and what happened. And they don't even really go into any detail about when Stuart finally shows up and, attacks the rear of the Union Army. They kind of just gloss over that. I mean, I guess they kind of go into detail about what was said between Lee and Stuart when he finally arrived on the evening of the 2nd, and just how tired his entire cavalry force was, and just how big of a foobar job that whole thing had been. But they I don't know, they kind of pulled back from talking too much about what had happened on July 3rd, but they give us enough detail and stuff, and they actually give Lee a lot of blame, surprisingly. Basically, they just said that he should have taken full-on command, because July 3rd, everything's do or die, so he should have definitely taken control of the battle, planned everything to the final detail, and just had a bigger role than he did. But again, he acquiesced to his subordinate, General Longstreet, and the book makes a valid point. I mean, why wouldn't Lee do that? I mean, Longstreet had pretty much always performed great, like especially the day before on July 2nd. He had done a great job, but, Lee had to have known that Longstreet just did not want to attack Cemetery Ridge. I mean, he just did not want to do it, and his battle plan shows it. I mean, he had no support for Pickett. The artillery wasn't ready to move up to support him. I mean, there was just nothing good was going to come from this attack. And it was always my assumption that basically it was Pickett, Pettigrew, and Trimble, and that was it. Like, if they didn't break through, then that was it. But in actuality, there were plenty of brigades that were pretty fresh that could have also backed them up and gone in with them. I mean, hell, Pickett's men were able to breach the stone wall at the angle. So if they had just another regiment or a brigade to exploit their hole that they punched into Hancock's line, who knows what could have happened. Now, I think the attack would have always failed, but, I mean, it came kind of close with just Pickett, Trimble, and Pettigrew. Imagine if they had had almost another division worth of men punching through there. So the book and authors really kind of talk about that a little bit, and they do give Lee some blame. I mean, once it had become apparent to Lee that Longstreet just didn't have it in him for this fight, he should have went, okay, I'm taking over here. But instead, he just kind of just let it happen. And that was a failure of leadership and a failure of duty, because that cost the South the war, that failure right there. Now, who knows what would have happened if somehow the Confederates had won at Gettysburg. I mean, I just don't really see a path to victory. I mean, the Army of Northern Virginia was amazing, but they were never going to take D.C. That just wasn't going to happen. D.C. was the most heavily fortified city in the world at the time. I mean, it was just no way they were going to get through. I think they had like 68 forts surrounding Washington, D.C., like 37 miles of trenches and entrenchments and everything. I mean, it was just, yeah. And of course, no matter really how much damage the Confederates did to the Army of Potomac, the odds are that the Army of Potomac would have always maintained a numerical superiority. So, yeah. In fact, that's kind of one part of the book that I was kind of like, I thought they kind of flubbed the casualty figures a little bit. I mean, we'll never know how many casualties were at Gettysburg. I mean, there was just too big of a mess to get a good idea. I mean, you see some figures, the Confederates lost as much as 28,000 men. But I think the authors kind of had a lot lower than that, like almost even with the Union casualties. I think they had it at like 21,000 apiece or so. But, I mean, who knows? They do go into pretty good detail about just how shot up the Union Army was after the battle. I mean, 1st Corps, the 11th Corps, I mean, just and the 3rd Corps were pretty much wiped out as a fighting force. And just how much damage that the Army of Northern Virginia was able to inflict upon the Army of Potomac is very impressive, especially seeing how the Army of Potomac was on the defense most of the battle. So it's pretty crazy, and it's very crazy to think, too, how close Lee actually came. I mean, on the second day, really, if Ewell and Hill had been aggressive, that probably would have been it. I mean, just look at what Hood and McLaws' divisions were able to accomplish on their own. I mean, it's crazy. Lee's army was there to win the war, and his men showed it. They absolutely gave it their all. Yeah, but kind of talked a bit more about this book than I meant to, but hey, it's a good book, and I love the subject matter, and I definitely think you will enjoy this book, and it's always fun learning stuff that you didn't know before, especially about something so important to me. I mean, the only reason why I got into history was because of the movie Gettysburg, which was based on the book The Killer Angels, which was naturally about the Battle of Gettysburg. So, I mean, it's just, I owe so much to this battle and to just everything that happened, and I've been to Gettysburg about 3 or 4 times in my life, and I definitely want to go many, many more times and take my kids there and just tell them about what happened. And this book is definitely a good source of information, and it's a interesting argument, and it will definitely inspire a very lively debate between guys who know about the battle. You know, did Lee really do this well? Was it his subordinates that failed him? Or was it, hey, failure from the top? He should have taken more control of it and stuff. So it's definitely a good conversation piece. And definitely add this book to your Civil War collection. And just, yeah, I mean, it's just an awesome book. And naturally, I would also recommend that if you can, try and get Mark Atkins' Gettysburg Companion. So yeah, Last Chance for Victory and the Gettysburg Companion. You get both of those. I think you'll be doing pretty good on the Battle of Gettysburg. But yeah, just check this book out, man. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a big book. It's got a lot of information in it, but it will definitely make you think, while it also gives you an amazing detailed account of the battle. So check it out.